Yeah, so let's do some matching footage. I'm gonna take an environment where you shot multiple cameras in the same place and they're different cameras, and walk through on how to match it. So this is just, it is matching. This is not color grading. This is color correction. First, I think I want to talk about the hierarchy of how easy it is to match stuff. Tippy top, we're talking about, studio narrative stuff. Same camera, same lenses, same environment. I think that's the best you're going to do. There's always going to be little differences that are going to be there, and so even if you have same, you might have to do an adjustment, but that's your best chance. And then it sort of goes down from there. So same cameras, different lenses, or same makes, same lenses. It goes down, and then you end up in the dirges where us indie filmmakers live, which is different cameras, different lenses. But in this case, same environment. So, because it's multicam. So this is anytime you're doing interviews or you're shooting multiple cameras on something narrative where the lighting is the same but the cameras are different. That's kind of where we're at. I also made it extra hard for myself. All these cameras just have baked in looks, Rec 709. So there's part of that. They're all 8-bit footage. The Canon, in addition to the fact that I definitely messed up the focus because I suck, just not very experienced using that camera and lens, to be honest, it's 8-bit 1080p footage. My Panasonic, which is actually the camera I'm using now, is 8-bit 4K, and my phone is also 8-bit 4K. So the two cameras they should be ISO 400, basically the same field of view, but obviously not. And then the phone is the phone because you just don't have a lot of control. So let's jump into it. And actually, I want to get rid of the titles because that's going to drive me crazy. Yeah. So before we really talk about how to actually go for it, I want to talk about the logic of why and when it's important to match cameras. And the short answer is to hide distractions, to make it not distracting, cutting between cameras. That's really what it is. So the first thing you want to do is come up with all the reasons why you don't need to be working hard on color matching different cameras, because it is such a pain. Intercutting between a phone call where it's two different locations. You don't need to work so hard to make the two cameras match, because there's an expectation that the one side of the phone call is going to be in one environment, the other side of the phone call is going to be in a different environment. So, yeah, any of that stuff. Flashbacks. One of the shots is a flashback, or a different period of time, or yeah, anything like that. But if you can't satisfy that, I think the other thing to really focus on is the narrative reason why the camera is a character. So you would have a standard shot and maybe security camera footage or GoPro footage or point of view footage from like a dog, or what else do I have? Phone, obviously, phone or Zoom call. Film school loves the nerdy person walking around with the camera, so you get the camera point of view. So that's one of it. Like the standard shot is the wedding, and then the videographer shot is a different look because it's through the videographer's camera as a bit, that kind of thing. So that's all reasons to have it stylized itself, and having different cameras helps. But if you can't satisfy that, if you can't satisfy the different scenes or locations, and you can't satisfy the camera as a character to call attention to the fact that it's a different camera, then you do have to actually go through the trouble, which it often is trouble, color matching. It's not as hard once you get the hang of it, and knowing your setup, knowing your gear, knowing your camera helps a lot. But yeah, so let me just walk you through how I treat it. So again, these are all Rec 709. These are all 8-bit footage. If you want proof, we can go to information. Let me get my scopes out of the way. So the Canon footage is 1920 1080 8-bit. The Panasonic is 3840, so UHD 8-bit. Phone 3840 8-bit. So, and they're all supposed to be, the two cameras are supposed to be ISO 400. That's definitely not the case. I shot a lot of light at it to make sure that I could get it right. If you have a color checker, It helps, but actually I played with the color checker and it's not that helpful. So, yeah, I'll walk you through how to do that right now because it is helpful. So you got your data color spider checker here. We're going to do Rec 709, which is here somewhere. I saw it. There it is, Rec 709 and Rec 709. So this is just taking the Canon profile sort of out of the equation because you're using math, and you just go to color chart and we'll make the color chart fit, which sometimes is its own journey. And this one appears to be that. All right, now I can zoom in. So as long as we got the the windows over the chips, we can now, boom, we can see how we did. So I can hide this for a second, and it's an improvement. It's moving colors around. I can see that for sure. It's making it brighter. Yeah. So if you have it and you have the wherewithal on set to use it, it's helpful. It's also just helpful to, when you're color grading, just be able to point to something and look on the vector scope if the red chip is at red. That's helpful. I'm gonna save you the trouble right now and tell you that I color chipped all three of these and it made them all crazy, and I just don't want to go through the process of doing that again. So what we're gonna do is instead we're just gonna blank out that right now. I'm just gonna use a key or whatever there is, use a power window, and I'm just gonna kill it. So let's just go all the way back. So it's just a big black frame. I also will, while I'm here, I'm gonna do my face thing, because I might want to use that later. So we'll just do a window over my face, and same thing, we'll just black it out so we can already see my face is skewing red because it's a Canon, and Canon skew red, so no big deal. Yeah, let's go to the next one and get rid of this sucker, because it's useful, but in this case it's more trouble than it's worth. And I think part of it is the sheen coming off of it, because it's slightly reflective, is making it worse. So yep, it's also really small in the frame, which is frustrating to me. Cool, so one last thing to worry about. All right, so let's look at these three images, and we'll play doctor for a second. Whoop. So the way I like to do it is you pick the weakest image out of the three, and these are all baked in, Rec 709 already. They already have the colors there, so that helps, because using log footage does make it easier, especially if it's 10-bit or higher. But I can tell you right now, it's the 1080p 8-bit footage is the weak footage by quite a bit. It's an older camera too. Also, I blew focus because I suck. So we have, so honestly, the 8-bit Panasonic 4K footage looks pretty decent. I might just leave that alone if I was just using that camera, as I am now. And the phone footage is artificially bright just because it messes it with its shutter speed, and I didn't have control over that. So let's try to make this look okay, and then try to get everything to match to it. And I can tell you right now, the phone's a weird one. I might circle back on my thing about the phone, but the thing about the phone really is these are similar fields of view, but the phone is actually even wider. But because it's such a small sensor, everything's sharp and in focus and all that kind of stuff. It's doing phone stuff basically, or it's doing GoPro stuff almost, except there's a round distortion going on. Phones really don't have that because of math. But yeah, so it's easier to match two cameras that are at least behaving the same way. So, this is a Super 35 sensor Canon, and this is a Micro Four Thirds Panasonic. Approximately same field of view, more or less. They're basically similar sized cameras behaving similarly, and you can already tell they're different from the phone. So that's the first thing. So let's get the Canon in better shape. First thing I want to do, we'll add 3. How about, let's get rid of this. I want to fix the exposure on this because I don't like it. I also don't like my skin tone being, if you look, my skin tone is almost right on red, which I'm not a fan of, but it's fine. It is what it is. I care more about the exposure. The exposure looks way too dark, so I'm just going to go to HDR. We'll call this exposure. And I'm just going to add, let's add a stop. Let's add 2 stops. It's going to make the footage noisier, but it is what it is. You can always do noise reduction later. Let's compare that to the other one. So how close are they? We can pull up the waveform. Oh, actually 2 stops is kind of right on it. That's interesting. It's more like 1 point. Let's just see if we can get it to line up correctly. That's pretty, I'd say maybe there. Yeah. I still think my face is a little darker. Come on, baby. There we go. I think my face is still a little darker, but I don't hate that. It's also different colors. So, yeah. And then the other thing is contrast. So if you look at these 2 images, the contrast on these is totally different. This is like a low contrast. You can see the couch is brighter than the couch here. The wall is a similar exposure, but yeah, looks like the darkest are darker. I think I would mess with the contrast on this one just because I know how vulnerable the footage is on this. So yeah, let's do that. Let's get over to the other one and let's start doing some stuff. So we're gonna call this good. We're gonna call this happy days, even though I'm not super jived about the skin tones, but that's fine. It is what it is. I'd rather get it to match than not. And the more you mess with the footage, the more it's gonna break. So let's call this exposure. Call this next one contrast. And then this other one, saturation. Saturation, that's kind of a deceptive thing, but yeah, so just look at them side by side here. And on this thing. So we need to, looks like we need to just bring up the foot a little bit. So we could probably drop the contrast a little bit, but I think you just lift up the shadows a little bit. Would that do it? There's a way to check too. So let's go into contrast and we'll drop saturation on both of these. Contrast, because we're not gonna, I know we're not gonna use contrast on this one. So now they're both in black and white, excuse me. And what you can do is, now that we're in black and white, we can really see a lot easier how the contrast is looking. So I'd say now on the one on the left, which is the Canon, things a little darker. So maybe we'll go down a little bit on the contrast a little bit. Still looks a little more saturated than I'm expecting, so maybe we'll just drop general contrast just a little bit. To my eye, and then keeping an eye on the scopes, maybe that. So here, we'll just drop saturation on this one. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's reasonable. I'd say I don't hate that. So what we can do now is get rid of the black and white on both of these. Yeah, so the faces are still looking different, very different, but the environment, at least we know the contrast is in pretty good shape. So now we can do saturation. And I need to go to the other one. So this is where we do a lot of vector scope stuff. So this, if you have the chip chart, you can look at the chip chart and, you know, red equals red, yellow equals yellow, that kind of thing. But there's really no point. So the way I like to think about it is skin tones and then primary, like most dominant colors in the scene. And so when you look at this, come on. Yeah. We got a lot of blue, because the couch is blue. That's blue. We got some red, because of that poster. And we got skin tones. Those are kind of the big ones. Skin tones, it has to happen. The rest of it is nice. This is, you know, this is big, bright, you know, saturated colors, so that's nice. But skin tones is the live or die situation. So what we can do is we will take the saturation, and this is where it's a little deceptive, because if we take the saturation down, it's actually, you know, if you look at the scope, actually the saturation of the Panasonic is a little bit less, so you might even want to go up a little bit. But there's a better way to do it, and so I won't do it that way. What I will do is, we know we're just going to use, you know, hues and sats and stuff. So first thing we want to do, let's just do sats, hue versus sat. So let's just grab the grabbers on all of them. Let's go to the red. And so I'm looking at red, and I'm just going to bring red up to where I think it needs to be. Yellow, you know, yellow I'm not super sure, which might need an adjustment later. Green doesn't seem to have much going on, so we'll leave green alone. Cyan, same deal, not really sure. Blue we have, and so it looks like blue needs to go down significantly. And then magenta, magenta is in a weird spot. So what we can do is go to hue versus hue, grab them all again, and try to get them to line up. So let's go to red, and we need to go left with the red. And let's go up a little bit on the saturation, as I saw on red. Yep. All right, let's do yellow. See if we can get yellow to line up. Yellow is going to be tricky just because it's weird, weird colors. I think that's where the yellow wants to be. Let me look at the image and see. Honestly, I don't know. It might be that. Is that the yellow we want? No, because it's, you know what it's grabbing? It's grabbing the yellow from the light. So we'll go yonder. That seems to be approximately what it is, and we can adjust yellow in the sat. And the color slice tool does this now too, but this is just, I feel like this is a little bit more refined right now. Hue versus hue, let's do green. I don't know that green's gonna matter. Yeah, green doesn't matter. Cyan, no, we don't have a cyan, but we do have blue. So let's push blue down a little bit. There we go. And then we'll do sat, blue. Yeah, there we go. And magenta. So magenta needs to really move around, which is interesting. And it looks like there's a secondary thing going on with magenta, which I can address, but it's not strictly necessary, I don't think. But there we go. So, yeah, I think it's closer. I think that's actually pretty reasonable. It seems like there's a little bit of green on the couch that this doesn't necessarily have, but I'm pretty happy with the red. The skin tones are still freaking me out a little bit, so we might do our own thing for skin tones in a second. But the rest of it, I kind of buy. I'd say, other than the skin tones, which are obviously wrong, I think everything else seems more or less okay. And let's go ahead and do the magenta adjustment right now. I'm just going to title this magenta. And it's in the bottom of the image. So if you look, there's a little gap there. And so what we can do is, in the bottom of the image, we need to do something with magenta. So let's mess with green, because it's green magenta. I guess we're going this way a little bit. All right, and then we need to fix everything else. I don't know how I feel about that, actually. So, okay, let's go back. So we brought some green into the image to move magenta down and out of the way, but it messed with everything else. So let's go into the middle of the image and try to fix it. A little bit more green, a little bit less green. Well, I don't like how I did that, so let's just eyeball it. How about? Because obviously trusting the scopes was not a good way to go. So bottom of the image, let's just go until we see the kind of green we want. I think it's about right there. Yeah, I think that's good. It's definitely different on the scopes, but I don't hate it. Okay, and then let's talk about skin tones, because skin tones are really important. In the same way, blacks being black and whites being white, you know, not having a hue of some kind on them, skin tones need to be skin tone. So let me do my face, because I forgot to do my face on this one. I look real tan in this one. Excuse me. So blammo, skin tones. So what we can do is go to the other image, maybe, and we'll look at skin tones. And whoop, there we go. So let's just do, there we go. Skin, let's do saturation. How about? So if we look at the slider, it just needs to go a little bit to the right, but it looks like just the more saturated stuff. So why don't we just push a little bit of magenta in, see what that does. Does it twist it a little bit? Yeah, something like that. And honestly, when you're looking at it, come on, behave. Doesn't like to do in the, I kind of buy that, honestly. So what we can do is we can turn these both off and see how they hang. I think that was that might have done it. We got some pink in the knees, pink in the face. Yeah, so that's kind of what it is. You know, it's just playing with stuff. I realize I did help myself quite a bit because I'm wearing a colorful shirt and I got a red thing behind me. So usually it's not that many different colors, but you know, there's a little bit more green in the image still, so we could still adjust, but I'd say that's most of the way, if not all the way. Are you going to notice the different colors of the pillow? I'd say yes in this case, but a lot of times I wouldn't think so. Just a little bit of green in the pillow. Yeah. Now I got to go back and adjust some stuff because it really did mess with everything. I also think I overcooked it a little bit, something like that. So we can go back into the saturation stuff and mess with it a little bit. It's probably just hues. So let's grab the red and fix the red, grab the yellow. And I think it's this one. There's three curves on the yellow. I think it's that one. Blue over there, and magenta is there. And we just need to adjust the skin tone just a little bit more. My only complaint is when you keep refining because the colors are just different, then you do have to keep going back and forth. Something like that. I'm gonna sneeze. Yeah, I think that's about as good as I can get it. You can always refine more. Excuse me. You can always refine more, but I think that's close enough. It's the real question is how much time do you want to spend on it, and if it's just cutting back and forth between stuff where you're not looking at them side by side, I'm gonna notice the pillow a little bit, but am I really gonna notice it that much? That kind of stuff. So maybe take a little bit of magenta out of the image. Maybe we just need to mess with skin tones a little bit. So let's take some magenta out. And then maybe mess with the red hue just a little bit more. And just cheat it to the right so it sells a little bit more. There you go. So yeah, so that's really what it is. And then so there's all your color matching. If this was log footage, you might have a better chance of, at the timeline level or anything, something like that, you're putting a LUT on. But obviously, since this is already pretty baked, the LUTs are going to be pretty wild. But let's just see if we can get a LUT to behave. I don't hate that. You do end up with, though, the last piece of the footage. So yeah, I'm gonna go fast on the phone just because I'm not confident, and also phones look different anyway. I mean, also look at the zigzag moire kind of crap, whatever it's called. So yeah, let's just try to knock out the phone quick. I don't feel very good about it, but that's fine. Yeah, so there's your camera, your phone camera. So mathematically, it seems pretty close. Image-wise, they're obviously different. Is it worth it for the camera? I don't know. I don't think so. But hey, who knows? If that's your second camera, that's your second camera. Yeah. Conclusion time. Find every excuse not to have to match cameras when it's different cameras. That's just a better option at all times. If that's not possible, start with your weakest footage and work off of it, because your weakest footage is the least flexible. Yeah, in this case, it's all pretty weak footage because it's all 8-bit, standard profile kind of stuff. The other thing is, just as long as it's not distracting, cutting between the shots, that's really the important thing. And like most color grading situations, time and budget is really going to dictate how deep you go into it. And I'm a big believer in, as soon as it's not distracting, that's kind of the sweet spot. So as long as you can get over the hump of it being not distracting shot to shot, you're good. The last thing to know is, even when you're at the tippy top of the options, which is, identical cameras, identical lenses, identical lighting, just by nature of the shots being different points in the room, there's going to be differences, and it will take some matching. Usually you can't usually just print it. So it's always going to be, the matching is always going to be part of it. It is a little bit more difficult to match different cameras. I think for most productions or most situations, having the same make camera with similar or the same lenses, for instance, C70 and an R5C from Canon, and both having Canon lenses, I think is a pretty good deal. Again, if you're in a situation where your budget is, I'm borrowing this and thank you so much, get what you can get. But resolution differences be what they are, sharpnesses differences be what they are, human error, not being able to grab focus correctly being what it is. I thought I was gonna have to worry about, maybe because of the resolution difference, sharpening this. I might actually blur this a little bit. I might take the sharpening out of this, because that seems to be a better situation. But that's a way down the road thing. If I ran out of time, the fact that they look different isn't such a big deal, other than the fact that I definitely blew focus, which is shame on the operator. Last thoughts. Planning is your friend. So, plan out having to use different cameras. Try to make that a thing you don't have to deal with, just because it does make it harder in post-production. So it's going to take more time. Yeah, if it's a situation where you absolutely need 2 cameras and the other camera is not going to match, that's better than not having 2 cameras, because it will take longer typically to shoot everything with 1 camera. So yeah, practice makes more practice, I guess. I match my Panasonic to my Blackmagic all the time. It's kind of second nature to me now. It's not hard, and I don't tend to use this for it. I tend to use this for white balance. These are both white balance, just factory camera settings, but obviously we messed with the hues, so that's all changed. Skin is the most important thing, and then on the next level down, it's the blacks and the whites. And if you're in a situation where you're doing like teal orange, and so the blacks are going to be a little teal and the whites are going to be a little orange, that's fine. Just make sure those hues all match. But the one big one is skin tones. So hope this was helpful. I hope it was easy enough. I don't know. It wasn't hard. But I'm very familiar with the Panasonic. So if you've got 2 completely separate cameras, it's different. So anyway, like, share, subscribe. Catch you on the next one.